again, and welcome to the County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. Today we are going to take a look at programs to help rural economic counties get into a growth mode. And there are existing programs, but there's a new one coming down the pike, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, if this seems pie in the sky, there have been programs to assist counties for a long time. They come from state grants, private grants, and some federal grants. We are going to take a look and start by taking an analysis of one company and the impact that it's had in their local community.
So the Forge project is a new method of creating geothermal heat. And so this is a research and development project to see if they can go and fracture hot granite rock that's below the surface and then circulate regular water that they pump down into that rock system and then bring that up to create the geothermal heat and the steam. We were made aware of the Department of Energy grant. We submitted the Milford site as a potential site. It was a several-year process. They had many sites around the United States that was competing for this grant. And last year they decided on the Milford site. It had all the right characteristics, good public access, utilities within close proximity, and then the rock formation was what they needed to be able to do the research and development. The Governor's Office of Economic Development and the Economic Development Corporation of Utah are great partners for the rural communities to explore opportunities in economic development and really know how to go about doing economic development. There's many resources at the state level that we don't have at a local level, and those two organizations can help you access those resources and lead you along the way. There's no way that we could do a lot of these projects if it wasn't for the Department of Energy grant and the State of Utah grant and many volunteer hours at the state level and local level. This project wouldn't be possible. It's a $140 million grant, and that's going to be funneled through many entities in the state of Utah and in Beaver County, and it's going to make a huge difference. Really excited for the opportunities that the Forge project gives us. It's been a long process. We started back in 2014, and you just have to stick with it and persevere and work hard to be able to make these projects possible, and we're excited what it'll do for us, both short-term and long-term. We think it'll really put Beaver County on the map for renewable energy, as well as help all of our local businesses and service providers.
So we've talked about all the chimpanzees in the room. Now the gorilla's going to come in. When we come back, we're going to talk about a new program that is just starting to gear up here in Utah that could really be a game changer for rural local communities. We'll be right back with the County Seat.
In a place that is beyond words, there is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon country.
Utah has a national treasure where winding canyons stretch to the horizon, where nature forms elegant structures, and where iconic monuments of the West stand tall. Visitors around the world come to get a glimpse of southern Utah's legendary landscape and landmarks. Join them and explore San Juan County, Utah's Canyon Country.
Welcome back to County Seat. We're continuing our conversation about economic opportunity in rural Utah and a new program. And we'd like to introduce you to the people running the program. This is, if I understand this, it is a grant that comes from the state and led to two new people working for the Utah Association of Counties. And I introduced Patrick Mullen and Stuart Clayson, who are kind of heading this project up. I know you have different titles within there, but that will become obvious in the conversation. So I want to start by trying to get an overview of just what's going on with this new program. It was just put into effect last year by the federal government. What is this Opportunity Zone type program?
Yeah, so the Opportunity Zone legislation that you're referencing passed in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That was, I believe, late 2017 when it was passed under the Trump administration. And written into it was a little-known provision called Opportunity Zones. And what Opportunity Zones are is a direct result of years of analysis and looking at the country's economic growth and realizing that most of America is still economically distressed. Our urban centers are growing at unprecedented rates, but as you look at some of the lower-income urban neighborhoods or rural and middle America places, they're seeing not only slower growth, but in some cases decline. Businesses are leaving, people are losing jobs, and one of the main reasons that was behind this was there was a real lack of investor capital and investment going into the communities.
So when you put federal government into a sentence, most people immediately think subsidies, grants. Yeah. How does this work? Because this is really different.
So there's actually no federal money behind this. So there's no grants, there's no subsidies coming out of it. What it is an incentive to private investors to use capital gains dollars. So those are dollars that would come from the sale of an asset, whether that's a building or a portfolio of stocks, and reinvesting those dollars immediately into a newly formed Qualified Opportunity Zone fund, which for the investors, the incentive is they not only defer the taxes that they would have had on those capital gains the day they sold them, they get 180 days to roll it into this new fund, but as long as that fund is invested in these newly designated opportunity zones, they don't have to pay taxes as long as it's in the fund. If they stay in the fund for 5 years, they get a 10-point step up in basis on that tax liability. At 7, that 10 points moves to 15. But the real carrot and what's designed to make these investors in for the long run is if they stay for 10 years, they not only have to pay they only have to pay that initial tax liability less the 15-point step up in basis, but it's tax-free at that point for any new growth that you've had.
So basically, if say you got 10 million, you get 2 million in capital gains, you put it into this fund, you leave it there for 10 years, you'll pay 87% of that 2 million, and the rest of the gains, if it turns into a 500 million portfolio, you get tax-free?
You do, yeah.
Holy smokes.
But there are rules, and I won't bore the viewers with the pages and pages of regulations, but this will be administered by the Treasury. It's designed to spur new community development, so they want to see new buildings being constructed, they want to see new jobs being brought in, they want to see businesses creating employment hubs. It's not designed for corporations to take advantage of. It's actually explicitly written in the rules that can't be done. But it is certainly, it's gotten the attention of investors across the country.
So how does that relate to rural Utah?
Well, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have 15 zones in rural Utah, correct?
15 counties.
15 counties that have zones. Thank you for correcting me. And so Patrick is leading out on that. And what we saw at UAC was an opportunity from the work that the governor's office and the World Trade Center did on the 25,000 jobs. And in taking the existing programs like tax incremental financing, the industrial assistance fund, the EdTIF program, all these programs that we have in place on the state level that either empower counties and local jurisdictions to create incentives locally or the state programs. And we want to stand them up right beside opportunity zones, because what we're seeing on a national level is several states across the country are actually creating new programs that go lock and step with the opportunity zones. And I don't know if we're going to get there, but what we want to make sure is that we're taking all the existing programs around economic development that can benefit rural Utah, and we're aligning them with opportunity zones.
So basically, you're just taking what's existing, making sense out of it, so it's a one-stop shop for...
Exactly.
a county or a city or somebody that's one of these opportunity zones to engage.
Yeah, and if I could add, the way the zones were selected, it was actually by Governor Herbert. So the governors of all 50 states were given the chance to nominate 25% of the low-income census tracts across the state as opportunity zones. So it can't be all of the low-income census tracts across Utah, but the governor really ran a balanced approach and split this pretty evenly across urban and rural in Utah, and it's created a significant opportunity across the state, for lack of a better term. But what we want to see, I think, here is particularly on opportunity zones, it just started the conversation across the state and across the country. There's a lot of investors who say, look, I'm really interested in this incentive. I'd love to figure out where I can come and park my capital, and we want to make sure Utah's on that map. But more specifically, there's other investors who say, you know, opportunity zones, they may not make sense for me. I don't have the gains, but this has really spurred this idea that we should be investing in these communities in our own backyard. How are we going to be helping these rural areas? And with our large banking community in Utah and with all of the network we have here, I think we're really excited about bringing that network together and making it the best it can be for the state. Excellent.
I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We'll kind of get into some of the details about how all these pieces interrelate with each other here on the county seat. Stay with us.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high. The stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Beautiful scene, isn't it? The great wide spaces of the wild, wild west. Hi, I'm Chad Booth, host of At Your Leisure. I'm asking you to support the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Their efforts responsibly preserve access to our public lands. If it were not for the Blue Ribbon Coalition and their efforts, you may not have access to millions of acres of land across the West. This is America's playground, and if we don't do anything, we are going to lose it. Join, participate, and donate.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
Welcome back to County Seat. We're having a conversation about a new program that is designed to bring private investment dollars with great incentive to rural communities and urban communities across the state. So you kind of outlaid the structure of this program, but I would like to have a little bit of discussion about the fact that well, I guess my question is it Utah investors that are investing in Utah, or is it anybody?
It's all the above.
So yeah, it's really a combination of both. It's created a national buzz about it. The investor community, whether that's on the real estate side, on the venture capital, small business side, everybody is talking about opportunity zones and how they get involved in this great new tax incentive. But in the local conversations that I think we've had, we've been in several rural counties. We obviously know the Salt Lake community very well. I've seen mostly local investors stepping up, local people saying, hey, I've got an asset that I'm trying to offload, whether that's a building or some sort of personal gain. I'd love to reinvest it in the community. Could you come help us figure out how to structure that, where we could be putting the money? So I think we're going to see a good blend. So basically you're saying John Price could play in this on a local level, but Bain Capital could play in this on a national level and still invest in Utah. Correct. Okay, so those were slightly underhanded on both sides, but it helps make the point. And so how's this going to work? I mean, right now I'm thinking of some commissioners I know, let's say in Daggett County, good bunch of guys, and they're going,
Oh, that'd be great, but how are we going to make this work? How does it work? Do they have to go find the investment themselves, or do they just have to say, we'll put our pieces in place?
Yeah, I don't know. It sounded like you wanted to take that.
Yeah, if I may, to jump in, I think that's why the Utah Association of Counties has created the overall program, which is our regional growth program. And within that, we're leveraging the grant that we received from the governor's office to help the counties that have opportunity zones in them, but also building out programs for counties throughout the state. One thing that's been on the books since the 60s is tax incremental financing. And tax incremental financing is a very effective tool for economic development. It's been employed very aggressively along the Wasatch Front, but in some of our rural communities, rural counties, there's not necessarily an understanding from the school board's school district's perspective or the other taxing entities. And what we have found is that counties have been coming to us asking us for helping setting these project areas up, and we're doing that. But instead of being a consultant who's come to town to put a deal together, we're there. The Utah Association of Counties has been around since the 20s, and our job is to build out programming to support our partner counties.
So what is tax incremental financing, just so that we have a clear picture here?
So effectively, what you have is you designate a geographic space, right? And you put parcels in that space, and you want to see some kind of development. It could be a hotel, it could be a large employer, but some entity is going to come and make a substantial investment in this area. And by designating it as a TIF area, or a CRA is what it's now called under 17C, the state statute.
What does the CRA mean? I'm translating.
Yeah, the CRA stands for a community reinvestment area.
Okay.
So what you're saying is you take a base year of 2019, and there is a value of it. So if it's greenbelt, it's very minimum. But then you get a $20 million investment to come into that property. And what you're saying is any new investment and new property tax above the base value, that is captured over time and then used for economic development. It can be used to build roads, water, sewer. It can be used to give an incentive to a company for job creation. And what we want to see, along with opportunity zones, is putting tax incremental financing together along with opportunity zones, or maybe just using tax incremental financing on its own.
So basically, if I understand this correctly, the property value is going to go up with the investment, and the counties and facilities or local taxing entities will continue to get what they got before.
Yes.
But the new money that's generated in the new value from the property tax the company's going to pay is going to go to help build out other projects and infrastructure.
Exactly. But then at some point in time, the project area phases out, and then all the taxing entities get to capture that new growth 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
How many programs are you guys bundling together?
Well, I mean, I think if you go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to say it really depends on the community, and that's what we've seen in going to these places. Some of them have opportunity zones, and they're really well positioned to take advantage of that. Others either don't have a zone, or they say ours is kind of in a residential area. It's not gonna. We don't see a lot of development happening within the zone. What else could you do to help us? And that's everything from looking at state incentives with their EdTIF program that they have for job creation, tax incremental financing, how they really just incent these businesses to get there. So we kind of parachute in to help the communities in whatever way is best for them. It's not about bundling 8 things together and saying, here's your menu, take your pick. It's about what are you trying to do and how can we best plug in to help you?
And if I may, it's about not taking a top-down approach, right? Before the show, we were kind of talking about the idea on the 25,000 jobs. I think that was a very good effort to empower local communities to kind of start taking the lead. But the local communities need to understand the tools that they have now and the tools that we need to create. And one exciting tool that I think could be another segue or another conversation point is the Utah Inland Port Authority. And in my previous position, I was a board member. So the Director of Regional Economic Development for Salt Lake County is written in statute as a board member of the Utah Inland Port. And I've said to legislative leadership, I've said to, the chairman of the board, Derek Miller, that the Utah Inland Port is not about a piece of dirt west of the airport in Salt Lake City. The Utah Inland Port is a state authority that has the ability to facilitate public-private finance to build out infrastructure so that we can get Sevier County, Box Elder County, Carbon County, you know, any county that has a commodity or something that we need to get into the global supply chain, they should be talking right now with the Utah Inland Port Board.
So the general theory, and then we've got to take a break, the general theory is that the Port Authority was going to maybe have a 100-mile radius impact, but you're saying it actually might be further than that.
Why not? That's, I mean, that's the really exciting thing, and what UAC is giving, UAC is a perfect platform to roll this out because UAC has these really substantial relationships on the county level.
Excellent. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with the county seat. We'll finish up our conversation.
Years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
Bear Lake is rich in friendships and color this fall. Explore countless miles in some of Rich County's best off-road trails. Whether you enjoy the pace fast or slow, there will be plenty for you to explore. Vibrant reds and yellows await you in this magnificent landscape. Come spend some time with us this fall exploring our trails, Rich County.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are having a chat with a couple of new faces at UAC about rural economic development and a new federal program. I do want to ask this one question, and it stems out of a story that comes out of one of Utah's smallest counties. This state came in, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and one of their representatives told the commissioners there, this is great, there's a great big grant, and you just have to write a grant proposal for it, and you can get 80% matching money, and you should take this and go. And the commissioner's response was, I will be glad to do that as soon as I actually have an economic development director or a grant writer. So some of these counties, you've got part-time locally elected officials who are basically carrying the water for the entire county. How do they participate in this?
I mean, I think that's exactly what we are trying to provide to these counties. I'll let Stuart speak specifically to UAC's kind of service offering to rural Utah counties, but the governor's grant that funded our involvement was specifically to go and create this pathway for rural counties in Utah with opportunity zones to be on a map, to be able to be seen by these nationwide investors, to be promoting their opportunities. We're partnered with Sorensen Impact at the University of Utah, the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute as well, to really build investment prospectuses and marketing material. And the governor's office is going to have a website up by the end of the year that hopefully has every single one of these opportunity zone deals posted on it. It's going to create hopefully what can turn into Utah as a leader in this marketplace. That's but one example. I think to more directly answer your question, I don't know if you want to speak to the economic development director piece.
It's almost as if we had rehearsed before we went on here. We're sitting here, one, because there was a grant opportunity that UAC went after that created the opportunity for Patrick, and then two, in my previous life as the director of regional economic development for Salt Lake County, I was asked to speak at UAC's events. And at their November event, Adam and Brandy Grace and myself got approached by some of our commissioners in a county. They were actually offering me a job, and I was quite honored, and it would be a lot of fun to go into their community, but I made it clear I don't think I would get my wife to move from downtown Salt Lake. But what I've always wanted to do is take the work that we've done in Salt Lake County and take it to the rest of the state. And so what they offered was to pay for specific economic development services. And we've executed an agreement, and there are a handful of counties that have come on, and those services are tailored specifically to those county needs, because every county in the state is different. Some counties do have full-time people, some commissioners are doing it. Every county is uniquely positioned, and what we want to do is not come from the top down saying, oh, we've got this great opportunity, you just need to do it. These communities, they know what their opportunities are. They just need some experts to help them execute and push the water down the line. And
bring the investors to them.
Exactly.
Which is what your job is.
Exactly. So we're actually really excited about this, because instead of, kind of dictating from the top down, I grew up in a very rural community. Obviously from my accent, I'm not from here, but there's nothing worse than, somebody in a slick suit coming to town telling you what you need to do. You know your community. What we want to do is you tell us, and then we help execute.
I think this is very appropriate, because the first time you and I talked face to face about this, I believe you were wearing a flannel shirt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I put on a suit and tie for you this morning. I needed to look respectable, and I had a beard and a handlebar mustache as well.
So here's my final question. We've obviously gotten some community leaders' attention with this program today. What do they do? How do they reach out to you guys?
I think they can call UAC. I mean, the uacnet.org is our website. We're both listed on the website. We are building out the content. This all happened at the first of the year, so we're moving very quickly. But I think you do business face to face. So give us a call. We've already visited about 5 rural counties. We're fully prepared. Both of our wives and our young children know that we're on the road, and we want to come out and have meetings and understand what's going on in everybody's community.
It's not that bad of a life being a rural road warrior.
It's pretty awesome.
It's beautiful.
And as someone not from Utah it blows me away every time I get the chance to drive. It floors me.
There you go. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in each week. This is a pretty important program for rural Utah. If you watch this and you're not a commissioner or a county leader, share it with them and share it with your friends. Let's get the conversation rolling about this. Remember, local government is where your life happens. So be part of it, be involved. We'll see you next week on the County Seat.